So, jet lag and can I beat it? My name is Fiona. I used to be a chronic insomniac and I help other people overcome insomnia naturally. And jet lag used to be something that I was so terrified about. I traveled quite a lot, and when I was struggling with sleep, anything that was going to potentially disrupt my sleep and the fact that I was finally getting it had to be consciously avoided. And as someone who actually likes to travel quite a lot, jet lag and long haul travel used to be something that I absolutely despised. And I would try and do anything to make sure that in some way I was going to preserve my sleep. Well, now I know that it's all about your perception on sleep disturbances that maybe differentiates whether or not it is or isn't an insomnia speed bump. But that being said, I have a long haul travel back to Germany next week from Colombia. I'm going to be kind of going over 6 different time zones. My sleep is naturally going to be disrupted, and I'm going to take you along for the journey. I'm going to explain how I can maybe try and beat this jet lag, my experience along the way, and what I've maybe done in the past that is something you should probably avoid if you are traveling and have the tendency to be a bit of an insomniac. To start, let's try and talk about everything that I used to do that I would probably recommend not to. So, as we know, insomnia is this kind of like misidentified threat of wakefulness. And when we already go into a flight or into traveling knowing that there is something to fear, this in itself is going to disrupt your sleep. I think it's important to remember that something like your circadian rhythm and your sleep need are going to be things that dictate when your body naturally feels sleepy and when you kind of like need that sleep. And that's something that you can't consciously override. Like, yes, of course, there are small little hacks, and I will talk about those later as to whether or not you can hack your body into feeling either tired earlier or later, depending on where you're going. But the most important thing is always to remember it's your perception on the disturbance that matters. So I'd say that if you are already fearful about the fact that you are going to be crossing multiple different time zones, maybe just start acknowledging that there is the fear. You don't have to change your thoughts. As you already know, changing your thoughts is practically impossible, but you can become a little bit more aware of the fact that there is that fear to begin with. And I used to try and really avoid that fear altogether. I used to sometimes take anti-anxiety medication for my travels. I tried to like force myself to sleep during the long haul flight. I would take melatonin when I arrived. Basically, everything that continuously perpetuates that fear, I would try and implement. And not that any of these things are purposefully bad, but when you implement them as a way of controlling sleep or avoiding some kind of future situation, that situation is more likely to happen. And say that for experimental purposes, I was trying to avoid jet lag. And I would say that the number one thing that if you are trying to avoid jet lag is to remember that sleep can never be controlled. You can, of course, implement all of these different quote unquote protocols, but realistically, sleep is going to always be something that happens naturally. And that's the number one thing to remember, specifically if you have a history with the fear of wakefulness. It's knowing that your body will come back to its natural rhythm and knowing that you can't implicitly control when that's going to happen. But number two, since I am not traveling till Tuesday and today is Friday, I have created a small little list of some of the hacks that I will be implementing over the next few days. Starting off with adjusting my sleep and going to bed earlier than normal. I'm already pretty much doing this. I've been waking up at 4:45 a.m. all weekdays to adjust for like European times kind of zones for work. So that's pretty much settled. I will get plenty of sunlight exposure. Also not a problem. I've pretty much spent the last 6 months chasing the sun and avoiding winter. So for me, getting sunlight and plenty of it has never been an issue. And then three, stay hydrated and stay well rested. I already don't really drink coffee past 12. I am a highly kind of sensitive person to caffeine, and for me personally, caffeine does disrupt my sleep if I drink coffee kind of like past 12. So again, I avoid caffeinated drinks, which are also quite dehydrating for your body. I also avoid alcohol quite a bit. And as much as I love doing a lot of exercise, I will also purposefully take some time this weekend to rest quite a bit. Anyway, I will take you with me along this journey, and I will also share a few different tips or quote unquote hacks that I have found of things that you can do during your flight and also once you have arrived. So let's see how this goes. So, small little update. Today is Sunday. I'm traveling on Tuesday. And yeah, whole protocol isn't going so well. I didn't sleep so well yesterday. Had to share a bed with my sister, which is completely fine. But I feel like sometimes I get in my head about sleeping next to somebody, and I used to definitely obsess around whether or not I would or would not be able to sleep. These days, I have a book next to me, I have a notebook next to me, I get out of bed, I journal, and eventually I fall back asleep. I definitely do not monitor the clock anymore, and this is precisely why I'm also filming this video. It's like, it just goes to show that as much as you try and kind of like plan for things, and specifically plan for things around sleep, like sometimes there's just so many things that are outside of your control. But yeah, regardless, one good thing is that it's sunny. So yeah, let's see how the next few days go. We are on the flight, yes, with my mic in the bathroom because there is no way that I'm going to be speaking to the camera in public. Protocol for the flight is going to be try and avoid screens, try and get sleep according to like local destination time, and also stay super hydrated, although it's going to be a bit difficult. 2 p.m. where I left, 8 p.m. where I'm arriving. The flight is actually a lot shorter than it's normally planned. Like normally it's about a 10.5 hour flight, and it's only going to take us 8.5 hours, so that's going to be a very small sleeping window. Also a very small seat. But let's see, I'm going to try and get some sleep. I'm going to try and read my book. I'm going to try and relax. And worst case scenario, I've skipped a night, and tomorrow when I arrive, everything will be super easy. Anyway, bye. So today is Friday. I have now been in Berlin for 2 days, and here's a little bit of an update of how I'm doing. Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about what I am supposed to, according to the protocol, do post arriving somewhere, specifically when you're traveling east. So here's my little list. And according to this, I need to get morning sunlight. I need to sleep at local times, of course, as much as possible, avoiding naps, eating at local meal times, and of course, also morning exercise. And before we actually move on to like how I'm actually doing, I do want to emphasize that all of these are things that again imply the controllability of sleep. And as we already know, sleep cannot be controlled. So as much as you want to implement these things, and of course, like for me now, I'm doing it more so as an experiment, but it still comes down to this like primary factor that you cannot control sleep, right? And when we try and implement these things as with the purpose of making sleep happen, they tend to actually backfire. So having discussed the protocol, there's one thing that is what you can do, and then in reality, how that actually turns out, right? So I flew out on Tuesday. Today is Friday. I arrived on Wednesday. Wednesday night, fantastic night. Slept like a baby. You just like kind of like the kind of arrival that you just want to have anywhere. But still woke up feeling very groggy. My circadian rhythm is definitely still not in sync. It takes around 1 day approximately per time zone. And I personally find traveling east so much harder than traveling west. Why? Because you can't actually make yourself like sleepy before time. Like I feel like the reason why I fell asleep so easily on Wednesday was because I had all this like accumulated sleep kind of like drive because I had barely slept on the flight. Thursday night, last night, could not fall asleep at all. I probably spent like hours tossing and turning, reading my book. I even got out of bed. I journaled for a while. And traditionally, this would have made me feel very, very, very anxious. But this is where I now remind myself that sleep is never something you can control. And this is where like I really want to emphasize on this video, like you can experiment as much as possible. You can try and take melatonin or supplements and you can get the morning sunlight, but that still only implies that sleep is controllable when in fact it is not. Like there is absolutely nothing you can do to purposefully make yourself sleep. And again, goes to show that like I can implement all of these like small little hacks and still not actually achieve sleep. Even though it hasn't been 6 days, meaning I'm not fully over my jet lag, I will be concluding this video today because again, sleep cannot be controlled. This is likely going to take me a few more days to adjust to. And the most important thing in these kinds of situations is to remember that sleep cannot be controlled and that sometimes a disruption to your sleep, given, I guess, that now changing in time zones, is completely normal, and you can trust your body that it will give you the sleep that it needs over time. If you do have upcoming travel, or if you feel like you, I don't know, get stressed out about the fact that sleep can be disrupted, you just need to remember that sleep is never going to be controlled, that sleep disturbances are completely normal. You don't even have to travel over 6 different time zones for your sleep to be disrupted. Realistically, we only sleep well, I guess, through the night, however you want to call or define well, 80% of the time. And good sleepers tend to overestimate how good they sleep, just as much as insomniacs tend to underestimate how much they sleep. So, key lesson here is you don't need to worry about whether or not sleep disturbances are going to cause insomnia. Insomnia is always how you relate to sleeplessness or your sleep disruption. You can actually, in a way, see this, or like see this potential sleep disruption as an opportunity to test your relationship with wakefulness, and know that your body actually knows what it's doing, and you don't actually need to get involved for this one. If you like this video and you'd like to help me share the message with anybody else who is probably struggling with the same, I really appreciate you giving me a like and maybe even subscribing. If you are ready to kickstart your insomnia recovery, I have linked a 5 days to better sleep insomnia recovery like email series. It is packed with all of the knowledge that I wish that I had found when I first struggled with insomnia. And if you ever need more support or want me to cover anything specific, please just reach out and let me know what that is.